to say that there was an Armenian genocide in 1915. I think people have different opinions on what happened in 1915. Some people think it should be called a genocide. I respect that point of view. Some people think, no, it should not be called a genocide. Most of them, if they're honest, they accept it's a very tragic event. That should be free too, and that's what you have, what you should have in any free society. You should have a free discussion of these issues. So I'm very critical of France, but in Turkey, what we need to do is to further liberalize our laws and legal mindset, which would allow a full discussion of this issue. Well, we should accept that, well, actually there has been some liberalization. I mean, 10 years ago, if you said there was an Armenian genocide in Turkey, you would go into jail for insulting Turkishness. The government changed the laws to some extent, so now we can discuss that, and people who think it was genocide in Turkey can air their views, can express their views. That's welcome. So in that sense, we are freer than France on this particular issue.
On France, on the genocide law, it has been said by Mustafa. One should not forget, though, that in the rest of Europe, there was hardly any support for this law. I mean, I think it's important to see, because in Turkish public opinion, it's often thought or seen as if the French did this, and probably the rest of the Europeans are going to do the same. The rest of the Europeans are not going to do the same. There have been efforts, there are efforts in the Netherlands, in the Dutch parliament, to have exactly the same law. The initiative is taken by the Christian Union. The government and most other parties have already said, no, this is not the way we're going to go. There's freedom of speech. Both positions should be able to defend their position in the Netherlands. In Germany, you have the same debate. They're not going to do that. In many other parts of Europe, you're not going to have this. So Mustafa is right. The French, in this respect, are non-European and illiberal. Now, the reaction of the Turkish government was, I think, the original, or the first few days, was understandable. Being angry, freedom of speech reasons, whatsoever. But it was totally counterproductive. Because what did they start to say? Aha, but when you accuse us of Armenia, we start accusing you of Algeria. Meaning, do exactly the same that you accusing your opponent of. That's stupid, it's counterproductive, not going to work. And the Prime Minister was wrongly informed that the father of Sarkozy was involved, he was not involved. So that was messy, that didn't help Turkey at all. Then I think Turkey made a very wise decision in thinking, but why don't we use the French instruments that are there to stop the law? Why can't we tell or make the case with the French parliamentarians that they should go to the Constitutional Court? Because the Constitutional Court, I'm 99% convinced, will strike down the law. That is clever diplomacy. You lobby, you use the instruments in France instead of bashing the French for being racist or doing the same in Algeria. That was not clever. Going to the Constitutional Court was very clever, and I think it will work out fine.
And second question is more general, a bit out of topic. What is happening in Europe itself, like in France? I mean, they forbidden the people to speak about what they think about Armenia. I mean, what do you think about itself? And also America or big countries, they say, yeah, we bring democracy to Iraq, and we saw what happened there. Okay, that is something out of topic, but I would like also ask to that. Okay, thanks.
Well, freedom of the media, yes, I mean, one of our friends who asked the question, well, in Turkey, we do not have enough media freedom. We do not have enough media freedom because of these power structures that governments use to put pressure on the media, and every government has done this before the AKP, and AKP is part of doing that too, unfortunately. But it's this media having other businesses, and those businesses. Actually, the problem is when you have big state. If you have a big state, society tends to look at who owns the state and tries to shape itself towards that, especially business. I believe in a smaller state. So the smaller state you have, the less political power Ankara will have. So a less centralized political and economic system will be much better, and probably that will be the solution to most of our problems. But yes, we also have a problem with media responsibility. I mean, yes, Turkish media should be free, but, give me a break. They should be responsible too. I mean, Turkish media, mainstream Turkish media, has been viciously bashing liberals, Democrats, minorities, we need better, laws about hate speech in the media. I mean, some of our mainstream newspapers are the ones who demonize people like Orhan Pamuk or Hrant Dink, whom we lost in 2006 to a terrible assassination. And it is, I think, time also that the media will be more critical, more self-critical, and raises also its standards. I mean, what is called tabloid media in the West is standard media in Turkey, and I think that we have a problem with that as well.
I have one question about Syria. That's actually one of the main things that I read a lot about these days. And last year we discussed in Holland, especially whether Turkey is a model for democratization in the Arab world. So this discussion is also going on in Turkey, and I'm very interested in your views about this process. Is Turkey a model for democracy in the Arab world? And secondly, what do you think in this process, what will go on in Syria and the prospects for Turkey on this aspect?
Is Turkey a model for the Arabs? I'll leave you that question. Just one. I think Turkey is not a model for the Arabs. Every country is different. But the AKP is a model for the Arab Islamists who want to be a part of a democratic system, and for the more progressive Arab Islamists. And we can see that clearly from Nafta, from Ikhwan Muslimin, and even the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria. They're being killed these days, but they're also saying that AKP would be their model.
On the Turkish model, I agree with Mustafa that if there is a model, it's more the AK Party model. I remember very well when I was in Morocco and in Egypt, 2005, 2006, preparing for a book. I was surprised speaking to the AK Party in Morocco, because they're PJD, that's AK Party. They have the same name, they wanted to achieve the same thing, and they're in government now. I was surprised how much they knew about Turkey and the AK Party. And the same with the modernizers within the Muslim Brotherhood. The young guys who went to the Egyptian parliament in the elections of 2005, they knew exactly the kind of debates, the kind of strategic choices for the AK Party. So, and they learned from, they wanted to go that way. So this is not only Arab Spring or Arab Awakening, this was coming for years. And I think it's a natural thing to do. Turkey as an economy, for instance, is of a totally different structure than the Egyptian economy. You don't have Anatolian tigers or Alexandrian tigers or whatever in Egypt. And you have so for Egypt to copy the Turkish economic success is a much bigger challenge than for the Muslim brothers, especially the reformers, to learn from the good things and the mistakes of AK Party. That is how I see what's happening in Turkey now and in the Arab world. In Syria, there are sometimes these issues, these cases where I still don't know what to think about intervention from the outside. When I read some articles, some good justifications for military intervention, because thousands of people are being killed in front of our eyes, and you should do something. There is something as responsibility to protect. That's why I was in favor of the NATO intervention in Libya, because the Benghazi people were in danger of being killed. Now the people in Homs are being killed. And what do we do? No, it's too complicated, it's too difficult. Syria, not Libya. It's all true. Then I read from the Syrian opposition, the people on the ground, who say, don't do it. Because if you intervene militarily, our whole infrastructure, our whole peaceful way of trying to build up a new state will be destroyed. And it will be the armed gangs who will monopolize the whole insurrection. Which is also true. And I don't know. And I think many people don't know. If you follow the debate internationally, people tend to say yes sometimes and then the next. So Turkey said humanitarian intervention, humanitarian aid, humanitarian corridors. Yesterday Davutoglu said, a bit too difficult, we're not going to do that because it would involve military presence as well. So nobody really knows. I'm deeply convinced in whatever solution, Turkey will play a major role for its position close to Syria, for its contacts with the Syrian opposition, both the civilian ones and the military ones. So Turkey will play a role, but in which scenario, I don't know. There was a big article in The Economist last week that claimed that Turkey would be willing to intervene militarily if it would be supported by the West and by the Arab League. Turkey has denied. I mean, I don't know. I also don't know really what the Turkish government wants. Are they willing to intervene, even if they get support, and make a safe haven? It makes sense for several reasons. But if they would be attacked by the Syrian army, would they involve into clashes with the Syrian army? I think it's a big mess, to be honest, in the thinking and on the ground. That's unfortunate for the Syrians, and I'm not quite sure whether in a couple of weeks we or the Turkish government or the UN or the Arab League knows exactly what to do. I think nobody really knows.
Oké. Kort even een resume van de vraag. Ten eerste is net door meneer gerefereerd naar inderdaad sommige dictatoriale staten. Nou ja, Assad werd genoemd, Saddam en Gaddafi. Heeft u expres andere landen zoals Arabische Emiraten en de overige Arabische landen niet genoemd? Of zit daar nog een reden achter? Dat is het eerste. En het tweede is inderdaad de band tussen democratie en religie. Meneer is van mening dat die band niet zo vanzelfsprekend is als vloeibaar uit. Maar kunt u daar nog een nader toelichting geven over de link van die twee?
So I should put that on. Well, on the question of whether I really criticize the enemies of American imperialism, but also I love the friends of American imperialism. Not exactly. Well, among the dictators which fell in the Arab Spring, and which I'm happy to see them falling, is also Hosni Mubarak, who was the best friend of the United States and Israel. And I don't say, oh, this is a friend of US, Mubarak should stay. I think all dictatorships should be replaced by more democratic regimes. Some of the people who are falling used to be Assad is anti-American, yes. It doesn't make him a hero in my eyes. Gaddafi was anti-American, but he had shifted his policies and he had become a friend of the US, particularly France. So I think it's not a black and white picture. To the question of why, I think the clearest case on the other side is Bahrain, where the Shia majority, rebelled against the Sunnis, and Saudis supported them, and of course America, having its connection with Bahrain, didn't say anything, and that's this honesty on U.S. foreign policy side. But also, I should tell you this: democracy is something which should come from society. In Saudi society, unfortunately, you do not have big riots and ask for popular, vote. Why? Well, Saudi Arabia has a lot of oil money and it's distributing money to its citizens, and that is enough sometimes to make people happy for a while. I hope the Saudi society will mature, will become less tribalist and more modernized, and also will be growingly more critical of the regime. If that's the case, I would certainly support them, but that's a process. But what is an urgent issue is if there's a dictator which kills the people for just rioting on this, for just making a demonstration on the street, which is the case in Syria, that is an urgent issue. And I'm with the United States, with France, with anybody who opposes the killings in Syria. I oppose the Iraq War, I will oppose the invasion of Iraq by the United States. I think that was an unjustified war, you could call it imperialism. I was happy to see U.S. stopping Serbian aggression against Kosovo, so it's not a black and white picture for me. I look at what they do and sometimes like it or not. It can be America, it can be Russia or anybody else. So I think we should look at these from the perspective of principles. And I think you raised an important question. Isn't there an inherent clash between Islam and democracy, or Islam and science? Well, I don't think so. And actually, if you look at the history of the Islamic civilization, you see that there was a very important scientific boom in the Islamic world from the 8th to the 13th century. And pious Muslim scholars had important discoveries in medicine, in mathematics, in physics, optics, in much of the algorithm names come from Al-Khwarizmi, from the Muslim scientists. And actually, if you look in the West, you see very faithful Christian scientists who built what we call a part of the modern world. I mean, like Newton was a godly Christian, and many other founders of religion. But of course, there are dogmatic believers who have opposed science as well. So I think some expressions of religious faith in the Christian or in the Muslim tradition is actually hospitable to science and supportive of science.